Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Today, I'm going to be painting over the Rainbow Bridge, and I'm sipping on some wild berry tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you'll find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. All right, so for our materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you could certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, cobalt blue, chrome yellow, fire red, fluorescent purple, green oxide, Mars black, and burnt umber, which I like to call brown. And of course you can switch those up if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil that I'll be using for some drawing. And then I have 2 brushes from my personal brush line, which is Michelle the Painter brushes. I have a 3/4 inch wide flat bristle brush. And then I have a number 3 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small and large as I go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a few additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you could purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the same size and type of the canvas to the same type of paints, same type of brushes, and all the good stuff in between. So that's there. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. All right, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be drawing an outline for our landscape and our bridge. I'm going to be using my pencil. You could certainly use any drawing utensil that is comfortable to you. I'm going to be guiding you through a series of markers. We're going to connect those markers, and by the time we're done, we'll have something that we'll be able to utilize during the painting in process. So I'm going to start with my bridge. A lot of times I will paint my sky behind everything, but I really want the colors of my rainbow to be nice and vibrant and bright, so I don't want to have any color behind them. So I'm going to section out where I want my rainbow to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself the center of the top of my canvas, and then I'm going to come over to the right until I would say I'm about 3.5 to 4 inches away from the edge of my canvas, and then I'm going to come down maybe about 3.5 inches, and I give myself a little bit of a marker right in through there. And then I'm going to come down to the bottom right hand corner of my canvas, make myself another marker, and then the bottom left hand corner of my canvas, make myself another marker. I am going to connect here to here and here to here. I'm going to do a long sloping kind of line in through here. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to take it from here, and I'm just going to start to slowly kind of slope it in a downward motion. I'm going to keep it as a continual curve, and then as I come down in through here, you can just kind of drop it right down into the corner of that canvas. I'm going to take from here and connect it to here as well. So I'm going to keep this really narrow as it kind of comes in through here, and it's going to just gradually get wider and wider as it goes down to the bottom. This is going to give our rainbow bridge a beautiful perspective, make it look like it's going way far off into the sky. So I'm going to take it from here, I'm going to bring it down towards this left, and I would say I'm going to bring mine almost, or maybe a little bit more than halfway to the over my canvas. So if this is about the halfway point of my canvas, I'm a little to the left of that, is about as far as I'm going to scoop this over. So I'm going to take it and scoop it over like this, and then I'm going to start pulling it back and riding it pretty far down towards the bottom of my canvas into that corner in through there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a uneven line for my landscape. I'm going to have it a little bit higher on the left-hand side than it is on the right-hand side. So I'm going to find myself about the midway point up on this left-hand side, give myself a marker. Then I'm going to just make myself a little kind of wobbly line to meet in through here that's just a little bit below it. On the right-hand side of my canvas, I'm going to find myself about the halfway point, and then I'm going to drop down maybe about 1.5 inches to 2 inches somewhere in through here. Now I'm going to connect here to here, but I'm not going to draw a line in through here. So what you could do is just kind of skip over from here, just kind of go directly across somewhere in through here, and then just connect this to there with just a roly-poly kind of a line. Doesn't have to be anything perfect, just something like that. And that's all we're going to be doing for our outline. We'll be using our large brush for the next step, so you can put your pencil away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting our sky and the base coat for our land, which is these two sections here. Now, we'll be doing the sky, but keep in mind we do have another very kind of intensive step that's going to be adding all the clouds. So when you go through this process for the sky itself, don't worry if it's not perfect. I'm going to be using my large brush. I'm going to be using blue, white, brown, green, and yellow. I'm going to be doing my sky with blue and white. It's going to be darker over here on the left-hand side. I'm going to get it to go a little bit lighter as it comes over towards the right and down by the horizon. And then my ground is going to be dark at the bottom, and I'm going to work my way to it being lighter up at the top, especially on this right-hand side where it's going to be directly underneath my light source. I'm going to start with my sky first. I'm putting my cobalt blue on my brush. I'm going to start up in this top left-hand corner. And again, not terribly concerned if it's perfect. I know it's not going to be perfect at this point, so I'm just going to kind of color that in through there. I'm picking up a little bit of white paint now, and I'm going to get it to go lighter and lighter as it comes over towards this right-hand side. As I'm crossing over my bridge or behind my bridge, I don't want it to look like I'm painting around my bridge, so I'm just going to make sure that I kind of bump into that as I'm going from left to right, and that way it'll provide me with a nice natural look behind the bridge, so it doesn't look like I'm painting around it. I'm just kind of going left to right. You could certainly do a circular type of a brush stroke if you wanted to. We're going to be, again, adding a lot of detail on top of this, so it's not imperative that it's perfect at this point. And I just keep adding white to my brush as I'm coming down my sky. So again, I want this left-hand side to kind of feed over into that right-hand side. And as you're going over or next to your bridge, if your pencil bleeds into your paint, that's okay. Mine is doing the same thing, and I'm prepared for that because, again, we've got lots of clouds that are going to be edging the sides of our bridge, so no worries. And again, I just keep picking up white paint to finish out the bottom of my sky, and I can even bump into my land because my pencil will show through my paint. And that way, again, it looks like that sky sits behind the land as opposed to around the land. And then I just kind of keep adding my white to my dirty brush as I come down this right-hand side. So what happens is the blue that was in my brush from up top just releases itself as I come down, even though I just continue to pick up white. Because I still have a little bit of blue in my brush, it allows for this nice gradient to happen as it's coming down that sky. And I don't want it to go all the way white because, again, I've got clouds and stuff coming on top of this, so I'm just looking for it to have a background color that's got some kind of blue in it, so my clouds will pop out and stand out as their own in front of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush in order to do my base coat to do my land. This is going to be the grass. We'll put some flowers on it later, but I am washing and drying my brush. I'm going to start at the bottom of my land and work my way up using a dotting or a stippling technique. So I'm going to be dotting it like this with the tip of my brush. I'm going to start the bottom with just a little bit of brown on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of tap it right at the bottom. And again, it's okay that you bump into your bridge a little bit. That's going to help you to make it look nice and natural. And I just went a little ways up. Now I'm picking up green on my dirty brush, and I'm going to overlap those two colors, the green and the brown, while they're still kind of wet. This is going to give me a nice natural type of a texture. And same what we did up top in the sky, if you bring this color over to the left hand side, it will make it look like it's the same ground underneath. This left hand side can be a little bit darker than the right hand side, also because it's the sun is shining more on this right hand side, or the light source is a bit brighter on this right hand side. Now I'm picking up green and yellow on my dirty brush. I'm going to just finish this section out over here with green and yellow, just tapping right next to my bridge like that, and just bringing this right up to my pencil mark like that. I'm going to do the same thing over on this side, green and yellow. And again, you can overlap that previous color section, and that's going to make these colors talk to one another and look like they are blended together, as opposed to just having one section of color in a row or on top, or like in its own section. We want them to look like they belong together, and they have created their colors harmoniously. So now that I've got that, I'm going to pick up a little bit of white and yellow. So a little bit of white and yellow to get this top area up in through here. And again, just kind of dotting until I get everything blended nice together. I do need to concentrate a little bit harder on the pencil mark up top so I can get that to disappear. So I'm picking up a touch more white, and I'm going to dot this really kind of loosely or gently, where I'm not pushing really hard into the canvas. This is laying down kind of a heavier coat of white paint right on top of my pencil. The white paint has good opacity, which means you can't really see through it. So that's going to hide that pencil mark. And then if you feel that you want some more little twinkles in your grass, you can certainly do that. And then we're going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your sky and your land done, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting our rainbow. I'm going to use my bristle brush to paint, but I'm going to use my small brush to just demonstrate how I'm going to be making some custom colors. So I really wanted my rainbow to feel nice and airy and angelic, so I'm going for more of a pastel type of color rainbow. You could certainly go really dominant primary colors if you want to, but I wanted mine to have a sense of airiness to it, so I'm going light and bright kind of colors, light, soft colors. So I have pre-mixed all of my colors. We have in the colors in the rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So I've made some custom colors, and I'm going to show you how I got there. Here are my colors here. So what I've got going on here is my red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. I'm going to show you how I got to each one of these colors so you can get there yourself. So for my red, I'm going for a light red as opposed to like a real pinky pink. So the red that I'm using is a very true red that doesn't have a lot of magenta in it. If yours does have a lot of magenta, your pink might turn out more on the like purpley side. So if that happens, you can counteract it by a touch of yellow, but I'm going to be able to just use a little bit of white in my red in order to get this nice light pastel red color. Again, if you don't want yours to be too pink, you could always counteract it with a touch of yellow, and that'll make it steer a little bit more towards like a light red color. So the next color I'm going to do is my light blue color. I'm going to show you why I'm going to do that. Well, actually, no, let me do my light yellow color first. Sorry, I'm steering my palette so the colors don't drip. So my light yellow is right here. How I got to that was I just used my chrome yellow plus white. That just gives me a nice soft yellow color that will allow me to have some good opacity so it's not terribly see-through. To get to my orange, I can mix my light red and my light yellow to get light orange. So you can go just pull some of your light yellow in and your light red, mix them together. It's going to be more light yellow than it is the light red. The yellow is very powerful. So that'll get you a nice light orange color, which is fun to just kind of create these colors on the fly without having orange on your palette. We just made a nice soft orange. I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to do the same kind of exercise to do my light blue, and then I'll mix my light blue and my light yellow to get my light green. So my light blue is here. How I got to that was cobalt blue and white. Mostly white on this. The cobalt blue is very powerful. So just a little bit of blue, a lot of bit of white, and then you can mix about, I would say probably 2/3 of the light yellow with 1/3 of the light blue in order to get this nice light green, because blue and yellow makes green. So you can mix those two together and get this pretty light green color that we can use in our rainbow. Now the only color that I have to just use on its own, and I could theoretically use my light blue and my light red to get a light purple, but for me that purple is going to be too drab of a color, so I'm opting to use this fluorescent purple instead, and I lightened it up by just adding white to it. So you can use the fluorescent purple, add a little bit of white to it, and you're going to get this nice soft pastel lavender purpley color. So those are my colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. I'm going to now put my small brush away, take out my bristle brush, and start painting my rainbow. So I want to show all of these colors at the top and at the bottom, but my bottom is really wide and my top is really narrow. So as I'm going through this process, I'm going to be mindful. As a matter of fact, I'm going to actually grab my pencil for a second so I can show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to be mindful to kind of give 6 sections down at the bottom before I kind of start this process, because when I do my red section, I want to be careful that I don't just do a little sliver. I want to, at the bottom, make sure that I have it kind of equal spacing at the bottom so all those colors can be represented pretty well. So you could just take your canvas and just split it in half, and then just give yourself a third and a third and a third and a third, something like that. That'll just give you, as you're going through this process, you have a little spot to aim for. So now that I've got that, I'm going to do it in color order. So I'm going to start with a little bit of red. I don't need a lot of paint on my brush because I'm going to do kind of like a dry brush technique where I'm going to blend them together, each section. So I have a tiny bit of red on my brush, or my light red. I'm going to start up at the top. I'm just going to use the little corner of my brush to just kind of give myself a little sliver of the red up and through here. I'm painting right on top of my pencil mark, and I'm just kind of bringing it down in through here. I will widen it in a minute, but I'm just kind of getting it on this edge over in through here. You can cross it right over into your landscape because you're going to have clouds that are going to cover that. And I know I've got to go all the way over to here down at the bottom. So I just reloaded with my light red paint. I'm going to put it on pretty wide down here, and then I can just give myself this long kind of arcing brush stroke that's going to get more narrow as it goes towards the top. At the tippy top, I'm only going to be able to get away with a little tiny streak of each color, but as I'm coming down this the rainbow, it gets wider and wider. So I've got my section on, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of color it in, and I'm going to give it what I refer to as like a soft edge, which means it's not going to be super firm on its line. I'm just going to kind of soften that edge a little bit. Again, I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, so it is allowing me to just kind of dry brush it in this soft way. Now what I'm going to do, you could wash and dry your brush, but my next color is orange, and I don't have much paint on my brush, so I'm just going to pick up my light orange color, and I'm going to start at the top, same way, just a little tiny sliver of it right next to or even on top of my red, and then I'm just going to kind of ride it down like this. And of course you could certainly use a different brush if you wanted to, if this brush was too large for you. Whatever you need to do to work it out is totally fine. I know this section down here is going to be pretty big. I can overlap it into that red section, something like that. I'm going to bring this all the way to where I've marked it, so I have that ample shape or that width at the bottom, and then I just kind of overlap it into the red section as I move up and get it to transition into my small little sliver up in through here. And again, if you needed to or felt it was important for you to wash your brush in between these colors, feel free to do so. I just want my colors to kind of bleed and blend into each other, so I'm allowing them to overlap, and then I'm just going to kind of give this a soft edge over on this right hand side. I feel like I want my yellow to really be yellow, and I'm afraid I might have a little bit of that light red still on my brush, so I am going to wash my brush going into this yellow color, just so I don't have too much of that red going. So I'm going to pick up my light yellow color, and again, I'm giving my brush a good squeeze in my paper towel, so I've got a pretty dry brush. I'm going to start again up at the top, representing just a little sliver of that yellow, bringing it down right next to my orange, and then watching my marker down at the bottom. You can at any time just kind of find that marker and then give yourself that curved line and get it. You can get it to overlap into that orange a little bit. And because again we made this orange out of the yellow, it will really blend well with it. We've kept them all pretty much in what's referred to as a similar tonal value, which means not one of them is a lot brighter or darker than the other, so they really work well together. Just kind of make sure this is blended the way I want up in through here. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into my green. Just blend this out a little bit more. There we go. And I know that my green was made with my yellow, so I'm safe to go into that light green color. Oh, let me soften this edge just a little bit before I go into my light green. This soft edge really helps to make those two color sections blend. So that's why I'm making sure I have paid a little bit of attention in through there. Now I'm gonna, again, just wipe my brush off on my paper towel, pick up my light green color on the tip of my brush, and again, just start right at the top. And again, this little tiny section up at the top, you might not even get all of the colors to be represented as much as you want them to, but just having the hint of them up there is going to give it some nice trueness to the rainbow. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring this down. I'm just watching my marker. I know if I just paint, I'm going to lose my way, so I'm going to just make sure I've got that light section. I think I have some crumbs or something on my easel that keep getting being brought into my canvas here. So just this light green, found my marker down at the bottom, and then I'm going to get it to blend in with my yellow section once I've got this curve. And I like to just kind of go for it when it comes to these curves and these blending, because I feel that I can, if I really just let my hand kind of work that bend or that curve, it tends to give me a nice natural full scope of that arc, as opposed to it just kind of being wobbly along the way. If you can somehow get your hand to just give it one full stroke like that, it'll get it to give you a nice arc. And then I need to get it to blend in with my yellow, so while it's kind of still wet, I'm just going to kind of go over that seam. And if I needed to, I could certainly, oh, that's too much green in my yellow. I'm washing and drying my brush before my green sneaks into my yellow too much. I'm going to pick up some of my light yellow just to get this to blend before it goes too far. There we go. So that was one of those things. My green was coming too far into my yellow, so I had to make a decision on the fly to wash my brush and pick back up some of that light yellow color so I could get it to blend in. And you don't have to have your rainbow as blended as mine is. I just really wanted to show you how to get these nice soft colors to give this prismatic type of appearance, which is how rainbows are created. So now I'm washing and drying my brush, and I'm going to go into my light blue color. Because I just had some yellow on there, it would have gone green on me. So I'm washing and drying my brush and drying it pretty good on my paper towel, picking up a little bit of my light blue color, getting a little sliver of that going on up top, bringing it right next to this green, and then just kind of bringing it down in through here, watching my marker down at the bottom. I can see it right in through there. And I want to leave a good sliver for my purple because I dig the purple. So I want to make sure that that purple color gets represented as much as I want it to. I just need to pick up a little bit more of my blue. And then after you get this done, you could certainly do a second coat over the whole thing, in just doing it in the same process that you did the first layer by starting with that red and then just moving your way towards the orange and then the yellow, and doing it the same way if you wanted to. You might find that if yours ended up a little bit more streaky and you do want to have that perfect blend, a second coat will help you out. I'm thinking I want a little more blue, so I'm just picking up a little bit more blue right around this bend here. I do want a lot of my purple to show too, but I want the blue to be represented as well. You can't have the full rainbow if you can't see all the colors. So there we go. That looks pretty good. I'm softening that edge like I've done all the others. And again, I'm going to wash and dry my brush to go into this purple because I really want the purple to be nice and purple. Because I have that nice soft edge, it'll blend in well with my light blue. Wash and dry my brush. Pick up my light purple and go for it again. So same process, just start up at the tippy top, giving myself just a little hint. This is where I'm going to try and cover my pencil mark, but if I don't get my pencil mark covered all the way, I know, again, I have clouds coming, so the clouds will help to disguise any of that little edge, and or you could certainly pull some of your sky color on top of it, but I'm thinking that my clouds are going to take care of that when I get to it, and then I don't even have to watch my bottom section here because I'm just painting in whatever vacant space is left. And again, just using my pastel purple, bringing it all the way down to this corner. And this bottom right corner, we're not only going to have clouds, but we're also going to have flowers. So it's going to have a lot of energy in it. I'm going to cross this over my blue section just to make sure those two kind of blend well. And you could also use I'm using a dry brush technique because I'm using a very firm bristled brush, but you could certainly use, if you were using a softer brush, you could certainly use a little bit of liquid medium and or water on your brush in order to keep these paints open a little bit longer, and that will help you to get that blending action. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my light blue and my light purple on my brush. This seam is not blended well enough for me, so I just picked up a teeny bit of both. So that's another little trick on that seam between those two colors. You can certainly pick up both colors at the same time to get them to blend as well. And then once you've got this done, we're going to be using this same large brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint some clouds. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm using are blue, brown, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be having clouds all throughout the sky and kind of lining the edge of my rainbow bridge. Maybe they're holding up the rainbow bridge. So I want my clouds to be kind of darker the farther away from the light source they are. So I'm going to have my light source over here, and we will do that in a future step. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my clouds kind of, especially in the sky, they'll be darker up here, and then they're going to get lighter and lighter as they go towards that light source. I'm going to start with kind of a dark color cloud, and then as I build my fluffiness, I'll be building the light on the clouds towards that light source. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of blue and brown. So I have blue and brown, just a little tiny bit on my brush at the same time. I'm going to start putting this circular type of brush stroke into work. And what this is going to do is it's providing me kind of this airiness to the sky. I'm kind of doing it in a circular brush stroke. And in my head, I'm thinking my clouds are going to kind of be wrapped around in like this circular type of formation around my my light source, which apparently is over there. No, my light source is here. So I'm hardly got any paint on my brush. When I get to my rainbow, I can certainly bump into it because I'm going to have those clouds behind it and in front of it. So I don't need to worry about bumping into that, that rainbow at this point. This is really just giving me some dark notes within the clouds, which is going to allow them to have lots of fluffiness to them. And I'm just kind of scrubbing my brush up into this upper region. And you can see I hardly have any paint on my brush, and it's providing me with these little dark marks throughout my sky. So it's going to give me this nice little darkness underneath my clouds or at the bottom of them. I just reloaded so I can get a little bit more of this darkness over here as I've got some clouds over on this left side of the sky. So every time I reload with this blue and brown, I'm going to start up here in the left-hand corner, so that way if it goes too dark, I'm safe up in through there, and then I can just kind of use the remnants on my brush as I come down in here. I'm even going to put a little bit of this down in the corners of my bridge. So again, my blue and my brown is on my brush, just giving myself these soft little areas that are going to be kind of the shadows underneath or throughout my my clouds. Again, just a little bit of my blue and my brown, and my clouds are going to kind of envelop the edges of my bridge. So these little dark parts will totally help. So now that I've got that on there, these little darkness, now what I'm going to do is just kind of build my way to the light. I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to pick up just a little bit of white and brown. So just a little tiny bit of white and brown on my dirty brush, and I'm going to build my way to the light. So with this, what I'm going to do is I'm doing this circular type of brush stroke that is the lighter side is towards the light source. I don't need to do a lot. I'm really just kind of doing a circular brush stroke and pushing some lighter colors towards the right side of the cloud formation. So again, just a little bit of white and brown. And as I do this, I'm going to be taking up less space. So like if I have a cloud here, I can put a little bit of that lightness on top of it. Maybe this kind of goes right over the edge of my bridge a little bit. And because I'm using white and brown at the moment, in a minute, I will put an even lighter version. I might even use white by the time I'm done. And what that's going to do is I'm in essence kind of building my way to the light. So again, brown and white are the colors that are on my brush right now in order to get the light part of these clouds to emerge, and then I'll put the lightest highlight on them in a minute. So again, brown and white, I'm just kind of giving myself another soft little aspect of these clouds over here on the edge. I'm covering up the edge of my bridge, where especially in areas where I feel like it's not where it needs a little bit of softness, so I'm just kind of pushing some some clouds on top of that. I'm going to do the same thing over here on the right side. So again, this is just white and brown on my brush right now, and I love using multiple colors on my brush because it allows me to have these various tonal values and allows me to get these objects that can sometimes be a little difficult to paint. It gives them these natural, this natural depth to them and texture. So again, just brown and white right now, just kind of giving myself this little bits of fluffiness in conjunction with that dark undertone that I put a minute ago. These are going to be right around the edge of the light source, and again, just kind of bringing it in this same direction around that light source. I'm going to reserve this whole area for my light source, so I'm not going to be putting many clouds in that area, but I still want to do the bright edges to it. So as I build my light source, I'll have these clouds on top of it. So now I'm just kind of making sure my edge of my bridge is kind of covered. And again, this is just white and brown. And in a minute, I'm going to be adding my white, which is going to bring all of these clouds to life. So again, just white and brown still on my brush. And because I just keep using the same colors, some of them are lighter. Some areas are going to be lighter than others, and some are going to be darker than the others. So again, this is because I'm using them at the same time on my brush, allows for that natural look to it. So that's looking pretty good. And now I'm going to just start building the white on top of these. Just making sure these look blended enough for my painterly eye to be happy. That's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to start picking up just white paint. I'm going to start over here where it's the closest to my light source, and I'm just giving these beautiful little tips to the clouds. I don't need to paint the whole cloud. I'm just kind of putting this little bright tip towards the edge of where the light source is going to be. So I'm using my brush in kind of a circular little motion in order to get these round tips to it. And it doesn't just have to be right at the edge. You could have some in front of others, and I'm just kind of blending it out so it just doesn't look like a line at the top of it. You don't have to do all of the clouds. You could even get them a little bit darker the farther away that they go. So maybe I leave a couple of these as they are like more brown, or you could even do gray. But I definitely want the ones that are close to the light source, again, which is going to be right there. I want those to be the brightest. So that's where I'm just kind of adding these bright tips to it. And even down along my bridge itself, I want the animals that are crossing over this beautiful bridge to feel like it's being illuminated for them and that they are being guided up this way. So I'm going to put a lot of brightness on the clouds right as they are along the edge of the bridge as well. Just again, our little furry friends need to make sure that they are being welcomed with some nice bright light and some nice fluffiness in these clouds. And of course, you could make yours as, you know, as large or as small as you want. I feel like I need a little bit more fluffiness down here and then down on this right hand side as well. And then I would probably let mine dry for a minute, see if there's any additional little fiddling that I want to do. Oh, there's a little purple in that one. Oh, you could even put little hints of the rainbow colors on the clouds too. If you felt that you wanted a little bit more like the rainbow was kind of glowing onto your clouds, you could certainly dabble in a little bit of those rainbow colors in the clouds. That would look pretty fancy too. And then once you've got this done, we're going to be using our small brush. Yeah, let's use our small brush for the next step. And so you can just put this large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint some flowers in the field. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors I'm going to use are my light red and white. You could certainly use any colors you want. I thought that it would be nice and cheerful to add some nice flowers as these animals are entering the rainbow bridge. So I'm going to put them over on the right hand side, and I'm going to be using the same color that I used over here so I can balance the painting, the colors throughout the painting. So I'm just going to be making some nice, fun, generic daisy style flowers. You could really make whatever kind you want. So I've got my light red on my brush, and I'm just going to be making these kind of round little petals, something like that. I'm going to do quite a few that are this size down towards the bottom of my land, and then I'll make them smaller as they go farther away. So right now I'm just doing like a little piece of one. I'm going to hide them behind my clouds. So maybe I got a little pop of one poking out in through there, and maybe just little pieces of them coming in through here. You could make as many as you want. If you have a favorite type of flower, you could certainly make a specific kind of flower. And once I've got a few kind of big ones in here, what I'm going to do is just make little kind of polka dots going farther away, so it looks like it is trailing off, and these are the ones that are close to us, and then we just have little tiny ones off in the distance. So when doing something like this, if you want to give a little bit of extra dimension to the painting, putting a little element like this, a couple of close-up flowers, and then getting them to just go smaller and smaller as they drift off into the distance. That really just helps to, again, just add one of those more lifelike type of qualities to it. Once I've got those flowers on there, I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel, pick up a little bit of white, and just give a couple of little centers to the flowers. You could make stems, you could, get as wild and courageous on these as you want to. I'm just kind of, looking to add a little fun element. I just picked up a little bit more of that light red to make sure that I can see the color. If you wanted to add more red to it, you certainly could. If you wanted to add more white or purple, whatever works for you is up to you. And then once you've got this done, we're going to use our large brush for the next step. So you can put this small brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to be doing for the next step is I'm going to paint our light source. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are white and yellow. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be creating a very light area for my main brightness, and then we'll be pulling out these beams of light. So I'm going to start with just a tiny bit of white paint on my brush in order to establish where I want this area to be. So I'm going to be using this kind of circular brush stroke in order to just kind of get an area on here. I want it to dry pretty quickly, so I am consciously just using a little bit of paint and kind of scrubbing it on here in order to, in essence, kind of dry it on the fly. I'm getting it to dry as I'm kind of rubbing it in. There's plenty of different methods that you could do in order to create a light source, but I know that I'm going to be wanting to pull this paint out far in a few minutes, or in a few seconds. So getting this interior area to dry on the fly like this will help me do that. So again, just a little bit of paint, getting these soft edges where I want the exterior glow to kind of happen in through here. And I'm trying not to overpaint that blue sky background because I want that to help aid in making my light source really nice and bright. So now that I've got that established as my bright area, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start pulling out beams of light. We'll come back to the center in order to make it even brighter in a minute, but right now I'm just going to put a little bit more white paint on my brush. And if this is my kind of center or nucleus of my light, that's where all of my beams should be pulled out of. So I have a little bit of white paint on my brush, and I'm going to start pulling this out, and you can pull it out in as many directions as you want. If you find that you're not able to pull it as far as you want, you can certainly add a little bit of moisture to your brush. You could add a tiny bit of water to your brush if you wanted to. You can really do a variety of different methods. I'm using a pretty firm brush, so my brush is allowing me to kind of pull it and soften it as I go, but you might find that that's not, doesn't work for you, and in which case you could certainly pick a different kind of brush to use. But again, I'm just kind of going from my center and then just pulling it out from that center area in, as many different directions as you would like. Just pull it from the center and you're safe. And you can get it as long. Some of them can be longer, some of them can be shorter. You can have, it really thick at that, at the nucleus, which I will make mine a little bit thicker in a minute, but just kind of making sure that I've got these all coming out. You can have them super duper long. You can see some of mine are going into the land. I want to put some of these ones over here pretty darn far into my sky, so you can even pull them farther, whatever works for you. Maybe these ones go a little bit all into that area as well. You can put little ones in between. you can just do as many as you want. It's up to you. It's your light source. You make it as bright as you want it. So once I've got all of my beams coming out, now what I can do is I can start adding a touch of light or yellow to it. If you're scared of the yellow, you can use your light yellow that we created for the rainbow. So I just picked up a little bit of light yellow and white, because the yellow can really be super powerful and sometimes too powerful. So I have light yellow and white on my brush, and I'm just going to add this beautiful little glow to some of my beams. You can add it to all of them, you can add it to some of them, whatever works for you. I'm adding them away from the center of my light source, so this just looks like they are glowing on the exterior. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush and go back to that center and put a little put brighter white in that center. So once I've got all my beams of light, I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put white paint on my brush, and I'm going to put another layer for a highlight in that center. So I have white paint on my brush. You might find that when you're doing your center, you might need 4 layers to get it to be as bright as you want, but I am going to just kind of put it on the center pretty heavy, and then I'll just pull it out into the beginning part of these beams, and that should bring me bright enough. And you can always just keep adding to that center as much as you want. I think I need to just make this a little bit bigger. Feels like it's a little small of an area, so I'm just kind of dabbing it on here to make it a little bit bigger, and that's just a judgment call that you make all on your own, however big you want your light beam to be. And then once you've put as many layers on your light beam and it's as bright as you want it to be, we are going to be using our pencil for the next step. I might add a little bit more brightness to mine, but I'm going to let it dry for a minute, and then I will put my large brush away, take out my pencil, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be drawing an outline for our cat and our dog. I'm using my pencil. You could certainly use any drawing utensil that you'd like, and you could also draw whatever animals that you'd like. I'm making mine pretty small in proportion to my rainbow, because I really feel like I want the rainbow to be, you know, showing its big, powerful, majestic vibe. So I wanted my animals to kind of feel like they were going into some grand place with this big bridge. So I want them kind of on the smaller side. You could certainly make yours much larger or smaller, whatever you'd like. Maybe you want a whole troop of animals going up there. I'm going to have my dog is going to be here, and my cat is going to be here, and they're going to be just really small. So again, we're going to do a nice simple outline for them, and then we'll color them in a future step. So I've got my dog kind of straddling between my yellow and my orange colors. You could make yours lower or taller, whatever you'd like. I'm going to just start with making a circle that's about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches wide, something like this, and it doesn't have to be a perfect circle. This just kind of gets us started. I'm going to be doing a dog that represents like a collie or a furry shepherd or something along that line, just a nice generic type of a dog with ears that point up. So once I've got my circle in place, this is going to represent the rear end of my dog. So I'm going to put the head on next, and we're just seeing the back of the head. So I'm going to just give myself a curved, like the top of a circle or a top of an oval, something like this is going to give me the top of my head. I'm going to put a couple of little ears on here. Just I'm having my dog kind of looking up at his destination or her destination, something like that. And then dogs for me kind of have almost like a little square type of a forehead, so I'm just going to pull out a little bit of that, and then just pull out a little area for the muzzle to go something like that. And if you have a different shaped dog, you could certainly modify this to whatever shape your dog is. If this represents the rear end, I'm going to put the right back leg is going to be coming out from about here, and that's the outside of the leg, and then the inside is almost about halfway in that circle, something like that. And I want mine to look like it's kind of in a walking position, so I'm going to bring this kind of in a curved way like that. And then I'm going to do the bottom portion of the leg is kind of coming down like that with a little bit of a bump for the paw of the dog. And then on the left hand side, again, the thigh's got to come somewhere out from here, but this foot is, oh, maybe this needs to be a little bit longer, something like that. The left side is going to be, the foot's going to be up a little bit higher, so it makes it look like it's in a walking type of position, and I don't need to bend this left leg as much because it's in maybe more of a forward position. And then I'm going to put a tail on, so I'm going to find myself just a little bit below, almost halfway in my circle. If this is halfway in my circle, maybe a little bit higher, and I'm going to give myself a long kind of curved line out like this. I'm having my dog with a real bushy tail, and then I'm just going to, I want this to kind of cross over this meeting point in through here so I have an easier time painting, and I'm just kind of giving myself a fluffy tail like that. I'm going to erase this little section inside the tail, so that way again, when I'm painting, I've got a nice easy process to follow, or easy outline to follow. Now I'm going to make my cat. So my cat is going to be just over here. I'm going to put a little circle. My circle is going to be probably a little bit lower than the bottom of this circle, so somewhere in through here. And it's only maybe a half of an inch to a quarter to a half of an inch. It's probably about a half of an inch wide versus tall. Then I'm going to put another little circle right above it, like in through here, somewhere in through there. That's the head. This is going to connect like that. I'm going to do a little bump out part for its muzzle or its front of its face like that. I'm going to put one ear back in through here like it's looking up at the light source. Then I'm going to put a couple of little legs. I don't really need to do much for these cat legs, just kind of put them coming underneath here, something like that. The thing that's going to make this look like a cat is its tail. So we're going to go far and tall with this tail, bringing a little kind of scoopy line in through there, and then like this. And that's all I'm going to do. We're going to do a couple of birds, but we don't need to outline those. And then you can make any little adjustments that you want. We're going to use our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your pencil away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat for our animals, and we're also going to paint the shadows created by our animals on the rainbow. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors I'm using are brown and black. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing predominantly brown as the base coat for my animals, as well as some little flying birds, and then I'll be using a combination of brown and black for some shadows on the rainbow. So I'm going to start with just some brown paint to create the base coat for the color for my cat. So I'm just going to color it in, stay within my pencil mark. If I go outside my pencil and or I don't want to use some of the pencil area, then I can certainly just leave it. I can also erase it later. I may even end up seeing some of my pencil underneath my paint at this point, because my paint is transparent or translucent, which means that you can see through it. So I might end up being able to see some of my pencil mark underneath it anyway, which I'm quite all right with. I'm going to put a tiny bit of black for the tail in through here, because I feel like I want this tail to be able to be seen a little bit separate from the body. So just put a little bit of black instead of brown, and just pick up a little bit more brown to finish off the tail. So I just put black where it met the body so I could see the difference between the two. Excuse me. I'm going to pick up some brown paint for my dog. And again, just painting the whole dog with brown. I might do a similar action with a little bit of black by the tail. But when you're coming to a section like this, where if you did feel the need to be able to see the difference between like the top of the back of the dog and the neck, you could certainly just leave the evidence of those two sections visible. These dogs are predominantly in almost like a silhouetted type of position, but if you felt that you were going to be doing a little bit more detail on yours than I'm doing on mine, you could certainly leave the evidence of those two sections. I'm just going to paint right over mine because I feel I'm not going to need it during the painting process. My tail, however, I do want to kind of know where I'm going to be putting my tail. So I think I might even pop a little bit of, maybe I'm going to put black around the edges of my tail. I just picked up a little bit of black. I'm going to put a little bit of black just kind of surrounding the tail, and then I'll paint the tail with brown. So that way we've got some good color variation right off the bat without even having to do a whole heck of a lot and pulling this dark color down this leg. I'm going to now just pick up more brown paint and finish out the coloring of this. So I'm going to have my dog and cat like just a generic brown kind of color. My highlight color that I put on them in my future step will be more of like a golden brown type of a color, but it's still going to be pretty generic color in actuality. But if you're doing your dogs or animals and you want them to be a specific color, you can always start with just, a basic color such as brown, and then add those custom colors on top of it, just to kind of get yourself started and have a basic shape to paint around. Sometimes when we're doing little animals like this and we really want it to look like our specific animal, we get carried away with all those little color variations and details just coming out of the gate. And I think it can be a difficult process if you're that concerned about every single little color being perfect right, from step one. So if you can just get yourself a basic shape that resembles the shape of your dog, that just helps your painting process and makes the whole process that much easier and less painful. So just getting that generic shape helps out. So once I've got that, I'm going to put a little bit more brown on my brush to get myself a couple of little flying birds. I'm just going to do real generic shaped birds in various sizes. So just kind of like almost like a fancy check mark or a fancy V. Maybe one of them is a little bit bigger than the other, so one side it has a little bit longer of a wing. I'm not doing anything fancy, just providing a couple of birds that perhaps are guiding our little feathered friend or furry friends up the bridge a little bit. So once I've got that, I'm going to put some shadow underneath my animals. So I'm going to use a combination of black and brown, and I might use a little bit of water as well to just thin out my paint so I can see through my paint. My light source is over here, so I'm going to have these long shadows coming from my animals and just disappearing underneath my cloud formation over here. So I'm going to start at the feet of my dog in through here. I'm just going to give myself a couple of marks going in this direction, giving myself the shadow from the legs. I know that my light source is pretty low in the sky, so these shadows can be really long and skewed, and they're also traveling down this big old rainbow, so they don't have to be exactly the same, mirror image of that particular animal. I just want something that kind of resembles some part of their shape, especially when it comes off of the animal, like right at the legs. And I've got a little tail in through here, so maybe I give the illusion of a shadow from the tail. So something like this will, steer the viewer to understand that what they're seeing here is a shadow of that particular object, and then just kind of rub it in. Shadows are going to be see-through, so you can see the the color underneath them. I might amp up this little cloud in a minute too, so it really looks like the shadow is behind it. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. Hold on a second. That's why we always have tea, to wet my whistle when I need to. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the cat one. I'm going to make the shadow a little bit darker where it meets the animal's feet, but right now I'm just kind of giving myself the little shadow. I think I'm going to make this one kind of longer kind of trailing down this rainbow a little bit more like that, as if it's just being skewed right down the rainbow, and then maybe a little bit wider where the body is being shown in through here, maybe a little tail coming up in through here. And again, it's a shadow, so it can really just be skewed down that particular object. So I'm just letting this shadow be skewed all the way down my bridge like this. And then I think I am going to, let me put a little bit more black on my brush just to get the shadow coming right from underneath where it touches the object, to go a little bit darker in through here, just so we can see the difference between the two. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I am going to put a little bit more detail on these clouds here so they look like they're in front of the, I picked up white in front of the shadow and not behind it. So something like that. Just get that shadow to hide behind them. And then we're going to be using the same brush for the next step. So once you've got the base coat for your animals and their shadows done, you can wash and dry this small little brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our animals. I'm using my small brush. I'm going to be using white, black, red, yellow, and brown. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a custom highlight color for my fur, and then we'll do some strategic shadows and highlights, and they'll be done in a quick couple of brush strokes. So I've got my custom color already created. I'll show you how I got there. It's this color right in through here. How I got to that was brown, that's a lot of brown, a touch of white, a touch of yellow, and a touch of red. So I'm just creating this kind of lighter, more golden type of tan color that will be utilized. I'm going to put a little bit more yellow and a little bit more red in there. So yellow and red makes orange, and then the brown and the white is going to make a tan color. So I'm in essence kind of adding a touch of orange to tan, and it makes it into this nice kind of rich light brown color that acts as a great highlight for my animals. So once I've got that color, what I'm going to do is I am going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to add shadows first on the rest of my animals, and then we'll use that highlight color to add the fur texture. So I'm going to take a tiny bit of black paint. My light source is over there, so I want to put some shadows on the left side of my animals and maybe on the legs that are underneath. So I'm going to take a little bit of black paint, and on the left side of this head I'm going to add a bit of shadow. I'm going to kind of line where I want the back of the butt or the top of the butt to be. So if you have a dog that has maybe a smaller butt and a taller neck, you could pull this down a little bit farther, and then I just blend it over to the right hand side. You could certainly do the back of the ear too if you wanted to, just a little tiny bit of black paint in through there. I already put some black down underneath this tail. If you wanted to, you could certainly put a couple little streaks in the bottom of the fur on the tail, so that'll add some nice texture into that. And then I also want to put a little bit down this back side of this right leg in through here, because again my light source is over there, so this will add a nice shadow back in through there. I'm going to now put a little bit on my cat, so I'm just going to put, I already put a little bit in that tail. I'll put a little bit on the back side of the head in through here, and then maybe down the back side of these legs, maybe a little bit on the left side of this butt in through here. Then I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to pick up brown paint, and I'm going to put brown on a second coat of brown on the dark side of the animals. So this is just brown paint. I'm just putting a second coat on here, so it allows any unfinished areas to be finished. I don't think I need to do much more than that, just a little bit on that left hand side. Same thing with my cat. It's just a little bit of brown paint. Now I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel, pick up some of that highlight color that we made, that lighter version, and now I'm going to put this wherever I want that fur to kind of be more evident. So I'm just pulling in a couple of little streaks on the top of that tail. I'm going to have some over maybe on this back and on this right hand side. I'll put a little bit of brown as well just to get this to blend in a bit more, but right now just kind of putting a little bit of this streakiness in through here just to give myself just put my hand through the wet cat. Put a little bit of a highlight over on this side of the animal in order to just give it a little bit of form and fur. So something like that. I'm going to do the same thing on the cat. So this is just that custom color, and this will help it to not be so we won't be able to see the rainbow colors underneath it. So, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but now I'm going to pick up a touch of brown just to make sure everything blends in with one another. And you could certainly, I'm going to add a little bit of white as well on the highlighted side of my animals in a second, but I'm just kind of making sure that I've got all my edges the way that I want them to be. And of course, if you needed to add or erase any of your outline, your pencil mark, you could certainly do that. I'm just kind of blending this in just a little bit with a touch of brown paint, getting these little guys. Sometimes these little tiny details can be the most difficult because we think that we, are doing a pretty good job, but the details, they're just so tiny. So I paint much better bigger. When I'm painting these little guys, it's like, oh, I feel like I need some glasses on. I feel like I want to do so much detail in such a little area, and I can't. I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm picking up a touch of white paint just to give myself a little kind of twinkle highlight on the muzzle, maybe a little bit on the front side of those ears. This is going to make my my little pup here look like he's being illuminated by the beautiful light that he's headed towards. A little bit of white over here on this right side, and just a little bit just to give that touch of the tail of the light. Maybe a little bit on the top of this tail, in through here, maybe a touch on this leg. So again, you can bring it as light or as dark as you want. I just picked up some of that light tan that we made just to get that to blend in just a little bit with that side, maybe a little bit up on this back so it doesn't look flat. And then I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white for my cat. So just a little bit on that nose, a little bit on the side of the body, and just adding these bits of highlights on the side where that light source is. Again, it's just one of those little details that's going to help to give it shape. I also want to give my birds a little bit of shape, so I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of white and add a little highlight on the top of them. So I can't talk when I'm doing this tiny bit. I'm just outlining the top part of their wings with a touch of white, and I'm not talking while I'm doing it because it's so tiny. I probably could be using a smaller brush too, but we're just going to muscle through this and get these little tiny white highlights ever so gently on the tops of these little tiny wings. And then once you've got this done, you can make any little adjustments that you want. We are going to be using this same small brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm going bottom right with white paint. I'm going to sign mine with my initials, as I typically do, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date, or maybe you want to paint a symbol as your identifying mark. Whatever you want is up to you because it's your painting and you get to sign it however you would like. And that's going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very sentimental image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.